So when you're looking for insurance, especially when you've just passed, a lot of people get into the trap of trying to only find things like Ford Fiestas, Vauxhall Corsas, those sorts of cars, because they think that they're going to be the cheapest to insure. And actually, quite often, Fiestas and Corsas are quite expensive to insure for whatever reason. So if you're trying to look for a good price on a policy, then what you need to do is look around at different cars. You can go on the price comparison sites and try different cars, but some of the cars I've found are the cheapest to insure are, if you're looking for something small and cheap, Citroen C1, Peugeot 107 or 108, and the Toyota Aygo are incredibly cheap, manual or automatic, really cheap to insure. And the same goes for the Volkswagen Up, Skoda Citigo and Seat Mii. They're also incredibly cheap to insure, and they're very good cars. So the thing is with Fiestas and Corsas and what have you, and people sort of think, oh, I must have a Fiesta or Corsa because they're cheap. They're actually not very good cars either, whereas the Citroen C1 and its derivatives and the Volkswagen Up and its derivatives are actually much better cars than a Fiesta or a Corsa anyway. But yeah, they're often quite cheap to insure. However, do have a look around at all sorts of different cars, because you will find that there are cars out there that you thought you couldn't insure and are much cheaper than a Fiesta or a Corsa. So there's no guarantee of this, and it depends on your area, postcode, etc. But things like Mazda MX-5s often quite cheap to insure. Minis are quite often cheap to insure, and you can get automatic and manual Mazda MX-5s, so they're both available if you're trying to insure them. BMWs tend to be quite expensive, so if you're looking for a BMW, potentially that is not going to be a car that is easily insured, but you know, if you want to pay the price, you can. Volvos tend to be quite cheap to insure, so you know, you could find yourself a pretty nice Volvo, and they're also like Volvo V40 for example, often not that expensive. You get one for a few £1,000s, so get one of those, you might find yourself being able to drive one of those. It might not give you the street cred you want necessarily, but if you want a good solid car, and they are quite good looking cars. And you have to remember that people that pass their tests are of all ages. There's an assumption everybody that's a new driver is 17 years old, which just is not the case. In fact, I don't know the exact statistics, but I suspect that quite a lot of people nowhere near 17, certainly not very many people I teach are 17 years old, and haven't been for a long time. If you go back sort of 10 years, you tend to find that there's a lot of 17-year-olds, but not so much now. So yeah, try and look around, try and look at different cars, do some comparison site quotes. As I say, there's a whole host of different cars out there that you potentially could insure, which are far better and more interesting than a Fiesta and a Corsa, and quite often cheaper. I mean, other cars that are good and cheap to insure: Kia Picanto, Hyundai i10, Hyundai i20, Kia Rio. So there are plenty of cars out there that you can look at getting insured. Should pull it up because the sun is quite blinding. Yeah, so just have a look round. And my recommendations, as I say, you know, for cheap to buy, cheap to insure, and good to drive, are the Citroen C1 Volkswagen Up, Mazda MX-5. Also, you know, if you don't mind interesting stuff, Mercedes SLK is also a good car to insure. Tend to be quite cheap. Again, loads of them automatic. Other stuff that tends to be more expensive, sort of bigger Mercedes E-Class, C-Class, they all tend to be expensive cars. If you're looking for electric, Renault Zoe or Hyundai Ioniq, the older Ioniq, not the Ioniq 5, are also not bad to insure, quite cheap insurance. If you go for anything sort of Volkswagen ID3, they tend to be quite expensive to insure. Again, this is all just things that I've checked out, looked at prices, speaking to people. But if you're looking for cheap insurance, those are the sort of cars you want to look for. And as I say, don't just focus on Fiesta and Corsa, because they really are overpriced quite often. They're not particularly reliable. They're not great cars in any way whatsoever. Can be quite expensive to insure. Yeah, have a look around, see what you can find.